Bro, I remember my guy said to me, let's go to Dubai. I said, no, I'm buying a house. He went to Dubai.
And I always beat myself up for it because if I started when I was 18...
Where would you be now?
That's the $1 million question, where would I be? And if I could go back in time and if I knew that degree apprenticeships existed back then, I would have went down that route.
Yeah, 100%.
And the reason I say that is because...
your mindset changes. Yeah. You might even go on Indeed and start applying for a job for security.
Yeah. One thing he taught me when I was younger is that with each generation that goes by, you need to be better than the previous generation.
Yeah.
So today I'm here with my good friend and entrepreneur, Alex Bayka. We're currently in Mayfair in the Biltmore, and today we're just going to be touching on a few different subject areas: entrepreneurship, stocks, business, you name it. We're just going to be having a conversation on those different subject areas, and we thought we'd record the session and just provide as many financial gems as we can to you guys. So, question one, what made you get into stocks? I guess that's a question for me.
Yeah.
And then for you, what made you get into forex?
Yeah.
Should I kick it off or do you want to?
No, you can kick it off, bro.
Cool. So, I'll never forget the day, the 18th of October 2021. That was when I made my very first investment in the stock market.
Shit. Was that the day?
Yeah, so it's
When
been...
I bought my house? I bought my house 17th.
17th of October?
Yeah, 2021.
Big day.
Swear.
For yeah.
Mad. Carry on anyway.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, it's been 3.5 years now. Been investing in the stock market. It's been a wild journey to say the least. So yeah, back then I was using Hargreaves Lansdown.
Yeah.
They're probably one of the biggest platforms in the UK. And I just started with £100. And I guess the reason why I was interested in stocks, at that point in my life, I just started my graduate scheme. So I was about 6 or 7 months into the graduate scheme.
Okay.
I was earning decent money, okay-ish money, and I just thought I want to start putting my money to good use. I knew that keeping my money in the bank was never a good idea, earning minimal interest. And around that point, I started researching about stocks. I was reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts. But with me, I'm a big kinetic learner, so I can read as many books as I want, I can listen to as many podcasts as I want, but if I'm not actually applying what I'm learning, I won't actually ever benefit. So I decided to get started. I put £100 in. I can't even remember what I bought. I think it was probably some stocks in Amazon, and that was the very first investment I ever made into the stock market. And as the months went on, as the weeks and months went on, I slowly upped that limit. So instead of putting £100, I upped it to £200 a month, £300 a month.
How long were you doing £100 for?
Maybe the first 3 months, and then as I got more comfortable with things, I then started upping it. And that's why I always recommend to people to start with what you're comfortable, put in a tiny amount, just get used to the idea of investing on a regular basis. And then once you get used to it, you can then start to put in more.
Were you interested in stocks before you got your paycheck, or did you wait for your paycheck and be like, oh my gosh, I've got some bangers?
No, so I obviously knew, investing is something that everyone should be doing, but only when I started to earn money and realized that keeping money in a bank account earning minimal interest isn't gonna make you wealthy as such. So that's when I came across, the stock market, and that's when I actively started researching the stock market, because I didn't want my money to just sit there in the bank earning nothing, right?
Yeah. How old were you then?
It was 3 years ago, so 24.
So, because I know you were working in uni, why didn't you start then?
Lack of knowledge.
Okay, fair.
Lack of knowledge. And I think during those times, when you're at university, you're not earning the biggest amount. So ideally, and when it comes to stocks, the more you can put in, the better.
Yeah.
But you're right. There was no reason for me to not even put in at least £10 a month, right?
I know what you were buying them times, bro.
The funny thing is, with a lot of these platforms, you can start investing with as little as £1.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse to not invest, but I think for me, and I think for a lot of people as well, it's just lack of knowledge at that age. And I always beat myself up for it, because if I started when I was 18...
Where would you be now?
That's the $1 million question. Where would I be? So, yeah, that's really my journey into the stock market. I just was starting to earn good money, and I knew that I wanted to put that money to good use.
But you see those times, yeah? Because I remember when I was like looking at house buying and stuff like that. I remember, I think you were also in the... You were thinking of it as well, innit? But why did you choose stocks?
That's a great question. So, I personally think investing in stocks, specifically in the stocks and shares ISA, it gives the lowest barrier to entry. So what I mean by that is, like I mentioned before, with a lot of these platforms, you can start investing with as little as £1. Now, if we talk about real estate, specifically buying a house to live in on a residential purpose, or even as a buy-to-let for an investment, you got to save over years. It takes a lot of people to save, for a 10% house deposit, which is what you got to do in the UK. So let's say, for example, you're buying a house for £300,000. You've got to save £30,000. It's going to take you
45 because of fees as well.
Yeah, so even more. So, if we're comparing stocks to real estate, in terms of the access that the average person has, everyone can invest just £1. Everyone can get started with £1. But then with property, you can't. It's not as easy to just put your money into real estate and get going.
No, of course, I would even agree that the ROI is faster in terms of stocks, because you can kind of see the percentage increase annually. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, property is property, and the money goes up over time. If it's residential, I mean, you're living in it.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of hopes to just pay it off and stuff like that, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, to be fair, looking back, if I knew about stocks at that time, do you know what? I knew about it. I just was...
But you didn't have that blueprint to say, okay, I'm going to do this, then this, then this, right? Everyone knows that stocks are great. Everyone knows that it's a good way to build wealth, but nobody really knows the step-by-step process to get started.
No, I think for me, it was the ROI, bro.
The ROI, in what sense?
Yeah, man, I was young, so I think for me, alright, cool. Everyone knows what forex is like. You trade, you swing trade. You see your money go up, down, Yeah. But especially even if you're investing in businesses as well, you pay for certain things like marketing. You can see your profit margins.
Yeah.
For me, I was just like, stocks. I'm not waiting for 10% for a whole year. Do you know what I mean? I was just a bit, what's the word?
You weren't as optimistic around stocks, would you say?
Yeah, I was thinking, bro, like, why am I waiting?
You thought there was better ways to make money in the short term. To counteract the argument, yeah, obviously with stocks, specifically long-term investing, so investing in index funds, that is very passive, right?
Yeah.
So you just put your money in and you just watch it grow.
Yeah.
With what you said about, looking for that short term, wanting to earn more than 10% a year, typically that requires a lot more of your day-to-day time.
No, 100%. But for me, again, I was very selective with my day-to-day time in terms of what I'm doing, what I'm putting my money in. Okay, cool. Now, let's say the house. The major reason why I bought the house is because self-employed. Yeah, stamp duty, holiday. Yeah, discount.
Oh, so you bought it during the stamp duty?
No, I just missed it. So I had to pay some. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I still had it discounted.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, I'm self-employed. I need to get a house out of my way ASAP.
Yeah.
Because self-employed, everyone knows how it goes. You don't. Next year, you don't know what you're gonna earn.
We are bigger than that.
Yeah. But plus, if you've got a good accountant, you know what I mean. Your profit margins, you can identify when it's a very good time to buy it.
Yeah.
Manipulate what you need to manipulate. Have a fantastic earning potential, and get a good multiplier, 4.5. And your affordability is high. So I'm thinking, like, if I buy this now, I'll never have to worry about a crib again. I'm done. That was like my main reason, and I thought, that's it. Life is done. Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna lie. What it did do is it hindered me.
Okay. In what sense?
I didn't know being.
So one thing I picked up, and we might have some followers that are self-employed and want to understand how mortgages work for self-employed people. Yeah. So typically for people that are employed, they'll just multiply your salary by 4.5, and that's your affordability. How does it work?
No,
for
they do
someone
the
who's
same thing.
self-employed?
It's just that for a pay, you need 3 months pay slips.
Okay.
For self-employed, you need 2 years, 1 year, depending on how you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Criteria is a bit more strict.
Definitely.
They need that.
And you
proof.
probably even need more of a deposit.
Yeah.
To get a high street bank. And then obviously your credit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the reason why I say it hindered me because
Get your credit up, my people.
the reason why I said it hindered me was because mortgage is only one part. But then you see when you have a mortgage, especially if you're coming from an entrepreneurial background where, you know, you like to play with money, you like to invest it here, knowing that, okay, you're going to get a return, so you're going to put that money here.
Yeah.
And you like to play around with money, innit?
Yeah.
With a mortgage, you know, okay, you know, every month
That money's coming.
you have to make this.
Yeah.
That money's coming out.
Yeah. Regardless of
Yeah.
how much you make.
Regardless of how much you make, which is fine, you know, pressure makes diamonds, but you start thinking safe. You start thinking, let me not
Powerful,
invest this
Yeah.
because I need that 1.8 or whatever it is to invest in my mortgage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you start thinking, I can't take that opportunity. You know, what you would have done before.
You would have been able to play it a bit more risky, but now, because you have that mortgage, you've got to play it a bit safer.
One of my friends said to me, he came to my house, he said, well done, congratulations, this is beautiful. He said, you've changed. I said, what? How have I changed? He said, you've become safe, you've become scared. I tell you, see, from that day, I wanted to cry.
Yeah, man. That's
He said,
powerful.
you've changed. He said, no, you're not on it no more. He said, you're not an entrepreneur no more, man. You might as well get married.
Do you know what? It's good to have friends like that though, because sometimes you need that kick in the arse, you know.
Bro, it was hurtful. He said, you might as well get married, have a kid, your life is done. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
Because you're no longer taking those risks because you're thinking, oh, my mortgage, the door might break.
You then start thinking like an average day-to-day person.
Not that there's anything wrong with average
There's
people.
nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
But your mindset changes. You know what I'm saying? You might even go on Indeed and start applying for a job for security.
Yeah.
Do
Ooh.
you know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a time. Yeah, but
So do you think that was a kick in the ass for you, and that made you sort of take things to the next level, or
Nah, man.
did that help escape your mindset in that point in time?
it's hard to say, man, because I was only in the house like 6-7 months, and then my mum passed, and then that just made my whole mental just go down.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? But you know, everyone knows obviously once you put your deposit, that's a large capital that's gone from your savings, etc. and whatnot. But and now you're looking to rebuild. But as you're rebuilding, you got to put furniture and all of these. And this is where people start to now take out loans and credit and you know, start putting the furniture on a 0% interest free and all of these things. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what I didn't want to do. But I think I was young. What was I? 23. My mental 6 months later. You know, losing my mum made me realise that what I've been doing wasn't me.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because I'm grateful for the situation because it allowed me to, you know, gain the wisdom that maybe people experience at 40 and stuff like that. But I realised my income had depleted. Do you know what I mean? You know, you go from making 5 figures or whatever, and then, you know, you're just thinking, let me just pay this moment, and then, you know, because when you're an entrepreneur, the effort you put in is what you get out. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Depending on what you do. And then, I remember after my mum's death, and I just looked at my account and I had like a certain amount in about 3 months gone.
Just like that.
Depression.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't even want to pay this mortgage. Like, I wasn't doing what I used to do. My passion for my hunger.
It just depleted.
it's gone.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm even scared to market. I'm scared to even put myself out there. Like, to be fair, I used to question and say, well, after my mum's loss, I don't know whether I'll be able to tell a joke again, innit? You know what I'm saying? That's how low I was, but I never realised it. You know what I'm saying?
That's a perfectly valid way to react to a situation like that. Losing a family member, especially, you know, a mum, it will mess with your mentality. It will change the way you think. It will put you in that dark
definitely.
period.
But that's what I'm trying to say in terms of your house can be big, your house can be massive, it could be a massive achievement, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have peace internally.
Yeah.
So if I could go back, I'm investing rather than, not to say that a house is not investment, but I'm not settling down and putting a large amount of money at that age.
Yeah.
Just to say, or dangle keys. You know what I mean?
And I think you touched on a good point there, because it really depends on the other external factors in your life. So at that point in time, you know, you don't have kids. So it would be different for people who are in a situation where they had multiple kids. They wanted that assurance that they've got ownership of their home.
100%.
You know, for you were just at a completely different stage in your life. So buying a house, it wasn't really a necessity.
Bro, I remember my guy said to me, let's go to Dubai. I said, no, I'm buying a house. He went to Dubai.
We'll touch more on Dubai very, very soon.
He went to Dubai, and not to say, obviously his lifestyle's fantastic, but
He's still there in Dubai now?
yeah, he's been there, 4 years now, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing money.
You're kind of questioning, was buying the house the right thing to do?
I'm seeing money, and money's not to be an no, but it's the money that he is now exposed to and the opportunity.
Yeah.
And the peace, because you see, when you're an entrepreneur, especially Dubai, especially within the financial markets, the networking is crazy.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it may not even just be financial markets, health, fitness,
Digital marketing.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Property is a bigger scope in Dubai, and you know, you're just seeing people from various different, you know, walks of life, and just by shaking this person's hand, he's gonna say, look, you know, 6 months ago I made XYZ just by making this decision. So you might not have known about that play. You know what I mean? There's always plays out there that you might not have known about, because you're only aware of what you know.
Yeah.
When, especially, you know, talking about the stock market. And I remember when he said to me that like 2 weeks ago, saying that a couple of the people that he met in Dubai, you know, they're making millions and stuff like that. And that's just literally
During their 20s as well, even before their 30s, they're chopping millions. And I think Dubai is great because the level of caliber out there, a lot of people that you meet, they're doing just as good as you, if not better than you. I feel like a lot of people that move to Dubai, they're moving there for a reason. The tax, and for the network.
the network is crazy.
If you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur, there's no reason not to
And the
consider.
weather.
And of course the weather, yeah. But if we're talking solely from a financial perspective, the network out there is crazy.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Crazy.
I would say America as well, like, depending on your market as an entrepreneur, the scale in America is different.
Yeah.
What those people are earning.
And, you know, tax is a big thing in America. They do get taxed. It's not as bad as the UK, I don't think.
Yeah.
But in comparison to what they earn, that offsets that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
In the UK, we get taxed and we don't get paid a lot.
You see, with the UK, I feel like a lot of people don't like to expose the start of their journey doing this.
I think another side of it is even thinking about what your friends would then think of you. Because even for me, when I first started posting, that was something that was at the back of my mind. Naturally, I'm a person who's very independent and I don't tend to care too much about what others think of me.
Okay.
But even for me, that was something that was at the back of my mind. Thinking,
But did you tell anyone about the page?
Initially, when I first started it, no.
Wow.
So I want to touch on this actually. So when I very first started the page, the reason why I started it was to just document my journey, right? So I wanted to look back when I was, say, 60 and just have one page where I could just
That's
keep
what
scrolling for decades,
Yeah.
and then monitor how my portfolio was performing.
When did you start? Where was your portfolio at?
When I first started posting, I think my very first post, in fact I can get it up right now, I believe it was on £22,000, so...
Okay. Why didn't you upload at £100?
I just didn't have the idea of tracking my portfolio back then. And at that point in time, June 2023,
Okay.
I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen.
But we'll put a picture.
£22,852 and 8 pence.
Not too long ago, you know, 2023.
June 2023, yeah, so almost 2 years ago.
So you did tell, but these times I don't think you had social media. I swear you came off social media for a time.
No, I was still on social media, but on this page specifically, I was posting anonymously, so my face wasn't linked to the page at that point in time.
Okay.
I was just posting because it was purely just to track my investment portfolio, and then, like I said, to have something to look back on decades from now.
So
I didn't care about having my face or, you know, and obviously another thing at the back of my mind was, as this portfolio matures, as it tends to grow,
You don't want evil eye.
exactly, I don't want evil eye, I don't want to then become a target. But eventually, you know, as I kept posting and I started getting traction and people were following me and they were interested in the journey, naturally my face sort of had to be involved behind the brand. I then started getting brand deals, and of course I had to show.
What was how many likes did you get on your first post?
My first post, 37. So
how did you get those 37 likes?
God knows.
Okay. Were you promoting more on TikTok then?
At this point, I wasn't. So I only started posting on TikTok last year,
Okay.
February 2024.
Okay.
And that one TikTok that I uploaded, it was, I think, my second TikTok. That's the one that went semi-viral, and that was me just talking about my journey, how much I have, how much I will have in decades to come. And I think that's really where things started to kick off for me, because I got a whole bunch of followers from that post, and people just love the journey. People just love watching the journey. Obviously on my page I'm all about financial transparency. I document the losses, I document the wins, and I think that's what people really appreciate.
100%.
The honesty, and people just like to see the numbers.
They like to see
because
results.
anyone can come online and say, oh, I made this amount, that amount.
That's so interesting you say that, you know, because that's one reason why I didn't have Instagram when I was doing trading. I thought it was too fake.
It was fake, yeah.
I thought like Instagram, people can reuse pictures, and it's just not. That's why I love Snapchat. It's not like real. You can't necessarily do things like in the moment and do things live. So it's so interesting that you say that, you know, that people were drawn to you about the transparency and how real and raw that you were, and realizing that you're such a young man, you know, chasing six figures.
Yeah, I think we've spoke about that topic for quite a bit now.
That was crazy still.
I want us to move on to a slightly different topic. What would you say motivates you on a day-to-day basis?
What now?
Now, so for me, right, I'm big on family, and one thing my dad has always taught me is, and this has stuck with me for...
Shout out your dad's gym.
Shout out my dad, yeah, Dr. Phil. One thing he taught me when I was younger is that with each generation that goes by, you need to be better than the previous generation.
Okay.
So at the back of my mind, I always know that my dad is obviously very successful, and obviously I need to actually outperform him. And that's just how we have to do it as a family. Generation by generation, you've got to outperform the previous generation. So I'd say really that's what motivates me on a day-to-day basis, just knowing that I need to do better than my dad, and my dad's doing very well in life. So yeah, I'd say that's my biggest motivation, just to keep the family name strong and, you know, keep building the empire.
Exactly that. I think similarly, mine's legacy. I know my capabilities. I know how far I can go. I know. Well, I felt like I'm the torchbearer. I'm the person that needs to carry the flag and break the boundaries of safety. And the only reason why I know that is because I've looked at the pattern of my life and I've identified that I'm the first person that experiences things. I'm the first person that does things, you know, the unorthodox way.
Yeah.
So I've realised that, if my grandkids and my children want to say thank you to me in the future, you know, I really got to kick down the doors and try different things and come out of my comfort zone. So I think for me, it's just all about a thank you in about 15 years time, when my kids are running around by the swimming pool outside and they're just enjoying, they're smiling, and it's like, yeah, thanks, Dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just me, innit? But I just know that, you know, similar to what you said, with each generation, you know, the next has to do better. And I know what my parents did and what my grandparents did, and I know what they were capable of, but they couldn't do. But I know what we have access to and what we can do.
It's a completely different ball game now.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we have to, like, you know, there's just no reason why you can't garner a community or a fan base or create a legacy, you know, for people to follow, to learn, and you know, be a part of that journey. So yeah, that's my motivation.
Would you say you come from an entrepreneurial family, or are you sort of the very first? I think you mentioned you're the torchbearer. Would you say?
I felt like I'm the torchbearer.
I feel like it.
Do you know what? That's a good question. Yes and no, but I wouldn't say that they called it entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason why I say that is just because I feel like, for example, my mum used to work, obviously 9 to 5, but she would also do hair. I don't necessarily feel like she thought of it like this could turn into a business.
Yeah.
This was just
she had something going on the side, but it wasn't like a full-on production.
Yeah. She never knew how to operate it as a business. You know what I mean? You know, that was just like doing someone's braids, watching EastEnders in the living room. I've come back from school. I got to put the kettle on so that my mum could put the braids in the jug. You know what I mean? It was just literally that. And then, you know, my dad helps people with nutrition and stuff like that. But again, how to operate it as a business model is two different things. And that's what, is that mine?
Food's coming.
Yeah. Now to start with.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Calamari.
Yes.
That calamari is looking sweet.
I'm gonna share. Allow me to help you.
No worries, sir.
Here we have it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please, the lamb chops. Medium lamb chops, yeah.
Medium lamb.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I would say my generation now,
Yeah.
my family, we're all creatives. And, you know, we've got a few entrepreneurs. Everyone's successful in their own right, I would say. Especially, like, you know, my generation. However, I know, again, there's barriers that need to be broken down so that everyone else can shine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm an uncle now, so it's kind of like, yo, that's the next generation. And by the time they get to 18, I want them to be like, that's my uncle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I've realised we're actually getting very old now.
Yeah.
Not very old, but
No,
we're
no,
going
no.
to that next stage in life. And I'm not just talking about where we're at in life, but, you know, seeing our family, our parents, they're starting to even move to that next phase in life.
Yeah.
You know, we're no longer young university kids anymore.
You know what I mean? That was 10 years ago.
10 years ago, literally 10 years ago. Alright, cool. So, question 3, slightly different, but looking back, was university worth it? What would you say?
Yeah.
You would? You don't regret?
No. But my story was a bit different, man. I was dropping out and coming back in.
Yeah. You were all over the place. Didn't you switch up your course quite a few times? Or was that
Nah, I never switched up my course. No, not at all. I just dropped out because I wanted to focus again on my business and stuff like that. I would say, yeah, university is worth it. The only reason why I say university is worth it is because I think it makes you a bit more hungry in terms of forming your own independence and understanding what level you want to be at. So I would say a lot of people start their entrepreneurship in university or discovering it. You know, you've got females that discover that they can do hair, lashes, and whatever, waxing and whatever they do. You know, you've got man them that start rapping, music. You know, they start cooking, trading, you know, reselling. Not illegal things, but you know, reselling like sneakers and stuff like that. I think because you know you need to understand that your customer base is just there. There's thousands of people right here.
Literally.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say it's fantastic. Well, year one is fantastic, and it allows you for your discovery, you know, your independence and your self-development. A lot of people haven't actually, you know, moved out of home and experienced independence away from their parents, or you know, within their home until they get to university. So yeah, I would definitely say year one is worth it. What about you?
I would actually say slightly different. In fact, let me say it like this. So looking back, if I could go back in time, I personally wouldn't have went to university.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because, especially with the career that I'm in, right? I work in tech. I think a lot of you probably know that already. But when you work in tech, you don't necessarily need a degree as such. And, you know, in today, you know, in 2025, we see degree apprenticeships are a very, very big thing. And if I could go back in time, and if I knew that degree apprenticeships existed back then, I would have went down that route.
Yeah, 100%.
And the reason I say that is because I think the earlier you can get into the big bad world, i.e. straight after you finish college or straight after you finish sixth form, if you're already implemented into the big bad world,
it's easier.
You're almost 3 years ahead of those who went to university, sometimes 4 years in that sense, because you know, you're already implemented into the workforce.
Did you learn that whilst you did a placement?
I would say a placement. I'm just looking back at, you know, I work with a huge technology provider, and that company, they employ quite a lot of degree apprentices.
Okay.
And one thing I've noticed with them is they're very mature for their age.
Okay.
And it makes sense because, you know, they're jumping basically into the big bad world. And they have no choice but to mature at a younger age. And I think the earlier you give people, or kids, should I say, responsibility,
100%.
the more advanced they are, the more mature they get.
100%.
And, you know, one thing just leads to another. So, and I think it works for, you know, if we're talking, if you look back at kids, say, in the 8 to 13 year age group, I think parents that give their kids more responsibility, they tend to outperform other kids who don't necessarily have that same responsibility. Even silly little things like allowing the kid to, and this might sound very, very silly, but allowing the kid to travel to school by themselves. I think it's a good way to help mature a kid early, in the early stages. Just giving them that responsibility, I think it advances them so much
definitely.
in comparison to kids that don't have that same responsibility.
100%.
So yeah, I personally, if I could go back in time, wouldn't have went to university. I think university definitely
Wouldn't
has
have
its
went,
perks.
or is it's not worth it?
I wouldn't have went.
So you don't think it's
I do think it's worth it, and I say that lightly, but I just wouldn't have went to university.
Yeah, fair.
I opened my student loan, I see 50 plus grand loan outstanding. It's for what it's worth in terms of the knowledge I gained personally. So I've done a degree in maths and economics, and I personally think my time would have been better well served working, gaining knowledge, earning money at the same time, and really putting my skills to use. But that's just my personal opinion. I think university was great from a social perspective. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no,
in university.
100%. We had a lot of fun. Those that know,
memories.
What was I gonna say? Did you always want to work in the big bad world though?
Back then, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I can't honestly say
Because
what my
thing,
mindset was back then. I just, and I think it almost led from what my parents wanted me to do. So I come from a Nigerian household. My dad's Nigerian. When I was younger, he wanted me to be a doctor.
Okay.
And you know, a lot of Nigerian parents, even some Asian parents, they're very strict on you have to go to university.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you want to do in life, you just have to go to university. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think my parents
hammered that into,
you know, you have to go to university and then you just figure things out from there. And I think times are slowly changing now. Like I said, we're starting to see degree apprenticeships becoming a lot more of a common thing. And yeah, I personally, I won't be pushing my kids to go to university. I'll leave it down to them and see what they really want to do.
One thing I would say is that experience is key. Try to get experience as early as possible, and that's volunteering, that's speaking to people, because you can apply, you know, their knowledge to experience. But speaking to people allows you to understand what the working life is without even experiencing it. So I would say I'm a big advocate for a gap year. I feel like universities also seem as, okay, this is just the next step that my friends are doing from college, let me just go, without a lot of people understanding what they actually want from it. And I do think being 18 and choosing a career field or a subject that dictates your whole entire life is too young. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
So when you said doing a gap year, what give an example of what that gap year would entail?
So, to be fair, look, the gap year could entail just working normally, but doing a lot more research of what you want to do, and, you know, trying out different things. I'm a big believer in saying yes to opportunities, because you don't know what door can open. Yeah. The only reason why I say taking a gap year is because, again, everyone's applying, doing their UCAS forms. I hope they still do that nowadays, but doing their UCAS forms, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, yeah, top 5 uni, But realistically, you're looking at your friend who wants to be a banker or whatever, yeah, but you're just gonna go to university because you just know that, okay, your friend is going, you know, this is
it's what everyone else is doing. Yeah.
Sometimes, well, back in the day, it was also looked at a bit shameful, like, oh, you're not in uni, like, what are you doing? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You almost feel embarrassed. Just, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you're just working in JD, like, nothing wrong with JD, but sponsor us, but it was like, oh, you know, that person's not in uni, like, it was mad. Yeah. However, I feel like a gap year also allows you to stack up.
Yeah.
Hopefully, anyway. Decide whether you want to go to uni anyway. Gain experience.
Just figure things out in general.
Exactly that.
You know,
exactly that. But again, yeah, go to university if it's necessary for your career. And when I was younger, I never really wanted to work in a big bad world.
So you always knew you wanted to go down the self-employed.
From the age of 14, I looked around. I said, yeah, it's a myth. Because I was like, cool, I want to do well in school, which I did and stuff. Yeah. But then there's a whole game that's out there that I need to now play.
Yeah.
You know, your applications. You gotta work for the top 5 and all of these things, but bro, the Chinese, American, all of these people, especially because London, if you want to work in finance or what other field,
tech, law,
whatever, you know, Canary Wharf and London's good for it, yeah. Living in London also comes with benefits. Well, back in the day, anyway, it was definitely.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, not living in London. When I say living in London, in terms of if you're from another country and you're coming, so like a lot of Nigerians used to come.
Okay.
Yeah. Back in the day, England was very economical. It was a fantastic place to live. You know, you got your health benefits, etc.
Yeah.
Bro, I do well. That's just a quarter of the job done. Mm-hmm. I was like, how old do I have to be to get rich? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you this here. Yeah. You said you always knew from 14 that you wanted to be self-employed. What was your dream job?
I said to my boy, I want to trade. Yeah.
Oh, from 14?
Yeah, I didn't know how I was going to do it. Yeah.
I don't even think I knew anything about trading at that age.
Nah, I did. I had a mission, but also, again, I think God favors me because when I see opportunities, I take it. This is why it's always good to hang around people that are a bit older or experienced in the field, because you get to see what they are doing at, you know, specific ages. You know, so when you get there, you already know that. Well, because you're shadowing him, you're gonna be a bit better.
Yeah.
Because he never had someone, but you've got someone, so you're gonna be 10 times better. And that's why having a mentor is very important. Yeah, Monty Lane. Yeah, but
I feel like your story is very interesting. With me personally,
yeah,
when I was around 14, 15, maybe even slightly younger actually. So My dream job back in the day was a vet, which is obviously very different to what I do now. Obviously working in tech and doing stocks on the side. Being a vet has nothing to do with either of those.
Yeah.
But you know, every child always has a weird. I wouldn't even say weird, but you know, they have their childhood dreams, and it's just interesting how over time things change as you sort of become more aware of the world. You sort of change what you want to do career-wise, and I would say I do enjoy what I do, like tech-wise. I think it offers really good perks. Yeah. Great pay. Yeah. Flexible work.
100%.
You know, it gives you location freedom as well.
Yep.
So, you know, I essentially call myself a digital nomad, so I'm able to travel from country to country on a monthly basis. Back in Dubai next month. And yeah, I think it's important to find your calling in life that matches what you want out of life.
Purpose.
Exactly, because with me, I know going into an office 5 times a week would make me depressed. That is the worst thing.
But are you saying that now? Because, bro, before COVID, that was the norm.
No, so this is interesting because with tech, typically, I don't want to say tech has always been a remote way of working, but I feel like with the COVID pandemic, a lot of other industries started implementing, well, they needed to implement a remote way of working, but tech, naturally, a lot of it has always been a remote kind of setup. So for me, it's just perfect. And, you know, when the COVID pandemic occurred, we just finished our final year of university. So my career had always been remote. Okay. But it doesn't matter because my career pretty much would have always been remote anyway because of the career path that I chose. So yeah, I think for me it just works perfectly. And like I said, you know, you just got to do what.
But how did you get into that career path? Because a lot of people may do your subject but not actually either go into maths or something or go into such a favourable industry.
Yeah, so I'd say for me, obviously doing a degree in maths and economics, going down the tech path is a very common route to take. Okay. So at that point in time, 2020, was it 2020, the year we graduated? Yeah. 2020. I just started applying for jobs, and I landed a data analytics graduate scheme for a water services provider. Okay. And I was there for about a year and a half. And then I decided, this is good, but I feel like I can do a lot more. And obviously back then is when AI started to become a very popular thing. And someone who I worked with in the past reached out to me. They worked for that company at the time. They said that they've got an opportunity for an RPA developer role. RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. And they thought I'd be a good fit for the role.
So you lot are making people redundant?
I mean, if you put it like that, we like to say we're just giving people their time back, right? So all the mundane, tedious tasks that you might do, the admin kind of tasks that you might do on a day-to-day basis, we basically automate those kind of tasks. Why is that?
Because we work in contrasting fields.
Yeah.
So, for example, what I do as well is human capital. I work in the human capital field, innit? So again,
just for people that don't know human capital, what actually is that?
So human capital is basically supporting organizations to look after their people and the managing side of things, ensuring that the right procedures are in place before it goes to the tribunal.
HR in some sense.
Yeah, HR in some sense.
Mixed with law.
Mixed with law. It could be from a migration point of view. It could be from a job cutting point of view. Or it could be from a growth point of view.
Yeah.
But human capital overall. So, when you're making people's lives easier, the company's definitely gonna be like, well, we don't need that output or that outgoing no more. And sorry, mate, it's either you upskill or.
And there's two ways to look at it. So you can see it as people being made redundant and just replacing humans with robots. But at the same time, you've got to think this is actually taking humanity to the next stage. This is coming, and you know, it's down to yourself. No one else is going to save you from this. It's really important to upskill.
Yep.
Become a specialist in something, because if you aren't a specialist, the bots are coming for you.
Yeah.
In the friendliest of
AI is your friend, not your enemy. Just know that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Question 4. Biggest goals for 2025 and the foreseeable future. Should I go first, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think. No, you go first, cause I know yours, but mine is in line with yours anyway.
Yeah. So for me, I would say one of my biggest priorities or my biggest goals would be to focus more on different asset classes. So I've managed to grow my investment portfolio to, right now it's at about £87,000. It was actually at an all-time high last month of £95,000, but then, you know, markets took a bit of a dip thanks to Mr. Trump and his tariffs. So yeah, things have.
You didn't get what I did there.
Is that supposed to resemble the blood?
No, the dip.
The dip.
Carry on.
Hey. I'm interested to see if the people got that. But yeah, markets took a bit of a dip. Ideally, I wanted to hit 100,000 by April, but it's not looking likely. Anyway, nonetheless, one of my biggest goals is to focus more on different asset classes, and simply put, it's down to diversification. So I'm a big believer in not having too much in one area. And for that reason, really, you know, as my portfolio has matured and it's starting to get to a nice sizable chunk, I don't want to have all my money, or a large proportion of my money all in just one area. So I think a lot of you probably know this already, but I've just purchased my first investment property in Dubai. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. That property is an off-plan property, and this is something that I'll talk about more in future upcoming videos, but the property will be ready in 2026, so next year. Still got a bit of time, but yeah, I'm really excited. In a separate video, I'll start talking about all the different numbers, the yields that portfolio or that property will make me specifically, and specifically why I've chose Dubai over invested in UK real estate as well. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. But yeah, I'd say my biggest goal for this year really, and over the next 2 years, is to build more on my different asset classes. Because, you know, diversification is just key, especially in today's day and age. I don't want all my money just in the stock market. So yeah, I'd say that's one of my biggest goals for this year.
I think that's a fantastic way for me to you know, mention my goals. First and foremost, you know, it's always important to have friends that inspire you. You know,
Turn around with 4 millionaires, you're going to be the 5th millionaire.
You get what I'm saying? All in due time. You know, if you hang around with people that buy properties in Dubai, I'm going to buy properties in Dubai, you know what I mean?
You heard it here first.
However, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, shout out my realtor, Lokesh, in Dubai. Been speaking with him already. Hopefully we get the opportunity to kind of show you guys, you know, the different opportunities out there in Dubai that you guys can purchase. But that's one of my goals for this year, to, you know, start working on investments in Dubai, whether that's the property side of things or just business acquisitions. You know, one of my businesses, I'm looking for it to franchise. I'm looking to get 3 franchises by the end of this year.
Ooh.
Hopefully, by God's grace.
Amen.
You know, as long as we find the right premises, and get my foundation up and running in Nigeria and make it global. So yeah, that's it for me, bro.
That's it. No, those are some big goals, man.
Yeah, definitely.
God willing, I know Alex Bayka myself, and he puts in a lot of work, and you know, the success that he's got, it just hasn't come overnight. So I have no doubt that you'll definitely reach those goals.
100%. Trust me. When we record for you guys, what, December the 31st, we'll talk about how the year's been.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can reflect and be like, yeah, we tick this off, we tick that off.
That's it.
You know, however, sometimes it's good to know that delay is not denial. So whether things don't get achieved this year doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to get achieved. Just keep pushing. Sometimes find other strategies. Sometimes speak with other people, because just because this door doesn't open now doesn't necessarily mean that the back is not going to open. So, you know, just keep on pushing, keep consistent, and just remain focused.
Very wise words there. I think that leads us to another really interesting question. What are some good money habits that you've formed over the years?
Over the years?
Yeah. I think I'll take this one, and I think a lot of my followers might know what I'm going to say already, but one of my favorite quotes from an amazing investor called Ramit Sethi, based in the US. Spend extravagantly on the things you love, but cost mercilessly on the things you don't.
Holidays.
For me, that was a game-changing quote, because for me personally, right, if we break that quote down into two separate chunks, spend extravagantly on the things you love. So for me, I love tech and travel, right? So I have absolutely no budget when it comes to those two things. I will splurge out on the latest tech gadget.
Yeah.
I will book the nicest 5-star, 7-star
100%,
hotel.
100%.
Because that's what gives me true happiness. That's what I like to spend my money on. So for that reason, I don't set myself a budget, because I know regardless of the price, I'm going to be happy. And then the second part of that is, you know, cutting costs mercilessly on the things you don't necessarily love. And I think that's just formed a great mindset for me to have, because, you know, I'm spending money on things that make me happy, but then I'm cutting back immensely on things that I'm not too bothered about. Another thing also is, and I think this is probably a toxic trait for me, but looking at things on an opportunity cost level. So like, you know, buying a new pair of designer shoes. Let's say I'm buying a new pair of Louis Vuitton shoes for £1,000, right? I don't look at it as spending £1,000. I look at it as the opportunity cost of buying that. So the price tag might be £1,000, but then if I pay that £1,000 for that pair of shoes, what could I have put that money towards instead? And I think, again, that's another thing that's really helped me look at the way I spend my money and think, is it really worth it? £1,000 on a pair of shoes, I could put that into the stock market. It could go to, you know, funding a deposit for a property.
We're going to talk about that as well in another segment, because if you know Monty...
Hey, listen, I'm a serial budgeter, and it's something that it's worked well for me over the years, and it's probably played a big part in my success, being able to be very strict in terms of my finances and being very diligent in terms of, you know, knowing when to cut back and stuff. So yeah, I'd say those are probably the biggest two money habits that I've formed over the years.
Mine's not so much a habit, but a realization that no matter how much money you have, I touched on this earlier, but if you don't have peace within, you're not going to enjoy that money. You're not going to value that money either. You know, you're going to splurge it on things that give you short-term satisfaction rather than long-term wealth or, you know, long-term success, shall I say. And, you know, I've fallen victim to such a situation. You know, I touched on it earlier where I had a certain amount of money in my account, and within a couple of months it was just all gone, but I can't tell you where. But again, mentally I wasn't there, so I only realised that looking back, and I started to understand that it's not necessarily the materialistic things that make me happy. You know, you can have a mansion, but if you don't have peace, then trust me, that mansion doesn't necessarily mean shit. So for me, you know, working on my mental, having peace allows me to make more money, value money, and see opportunities clearer. So I don't necessarily have a habit, but I would say ensure that mentally you're okay before you know, spending your money, splurging your money, because it's gonna go like that, and then you start to chase the bag. When you start to chase the bag, you know, you start playing, you start gambling, you start doing things that you wouldn't have necessarily done in the past, because you know, oh my gosh, you're in debt to yourself because of the errors that you made. Do you know what I mean?
The importance of personal branding.
Ooh, fantastic way. Fantastic. What does personal branding mean though? Let's start there.
To me, I guess it's subjective, but to me, personal branding is all about embodying the message that you're trying to put out there.
Okay.
So for me, Monty Lane Finance, obviously I talk a lot about money management, personal finance and investing. And you know, I always like to think when people think about money management, when they think about investing, they think of Monty Lane because that's what his
You
brand.
associate yourself to.
Exactly. So that's what personal branding is all about to me. Would you say you agree with that?
About your personal brand?
Just the definition of personal branding in general.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, your personal brand has to attribute to a theme that you're following. Doesn't necessarily need to mean that you're focused on one niche. You know, you could be a multifaceted person. However, you just need to either be a go-to person in that field. So, for example, you know, you might have a personal trainer friend. You know, his personal brand is that he's a personal trainer. You know, if you're fat, you want to gain weight, etc., you're gonna go to that person. That's because you know that's his reputation. If someone wants to start investing, they're gonna go to you. They're gonna go to me. You know, if they want to start talking about life or gain insights, you know, they'll go to that person that they deem relevant. So you have to ensure that, you know, whatever you're preaching, you're living. So I would definitely agree.
Yeah. And I think a recent success story for me, so on Instagram, I recently posted that I obviously bought my property in Dubai. And someone reached out to me, one of my followers, and they've also now gone ahead and actually bought a property in Dubai as well. And for me, that's just such a nice sort of little success story because the information I've put out there, they've obviously gone ahead and done their research, and they've gone ahead to make a big life decision as well. So for me, that's a real sort of nice little success story, and it makes me feel good about what I'm putting out there because it's motivating people to really go out there, seek that knowledge, and then go ahead and make.
When did you know that you're a valuable contributor to society?
When, you know, random people that I don't know would comment under my TikToks and they'll just be like, I saw your video from 6 months ago, I put X amount in, it's now made me this much. And I'm not saying that I give financial advice because I don't. I just document what I do, and then people can then make the decision as to 100%. What they want to do with that information. But for me, that's what really brings me happiness, seeing people benefit from the information I've put out there. And like I said, you know, me making videos in the past, them coming back 6 months later and saying, because of this video, I made the decision to invest, I'm now up by X amount.
No, 100%.
I think that's a real good feeling for me, and that's what gives me real happiness, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. No, likewise, I think the reason why I'm so big on change, journey, and focusing on human beings, well, again,
This man ain't touched his calamari here.
but I don't know how to eat that one, man. Look at the sauce that's on it. I'm on camera. Yo. I can't even be bougie with that one. If I start to eat it, you know, you guys are gonna know where I'm from. However, you never know who's watching. Someone will just message me randomly at like 2 a.m. Alex, you're so inspiring, keep it up. And I'm thinking, what? I'm just a regular guy, do you know what I mean? But
it's messages like that make you realize like you're doing something, you know. Random people as well, not your friends, not your family, just people that you don't even know exist, reaching out to you, watching your story, watching your journey and complimenting you.
It's actually insane. They helped me realize what my purpose is in life, you know, and how I want to continue developing people and showing people the journey of life, of what my life looks like, and, you know, reaching success and being the go-to person for the next generation, you know. Do you think your friends should support you?
That's a separate question, but I'll happily talk about that.
Cool, go on.
Alright, cool. Question 6. Do you think your friends should support you? I guess this is coming from a business perspective.
Yeah, business perspective.
This is a great question. I think my mindset to this has changed recently.
Interesting.
Specifically for what I do. I don't tend to talk about this a lot on my pages, but I run an e-commerce brand, well, multiple e-commerce brands. And
Oh, you're telling them now, yeah?
a few people know here and there. But one thing I've noticed, right, and I think this is specifically for what I do, knowing your target audience and then being able to run ads and market your content and your product to your target audience matters the most. So with that being said, right, I never really share any of my business ventures or anything that I'm doing on the side. I don't force it upon friends and family because I know that target audience matters more. Once you found your target market, your target audience, and you know how to run ads, the money just naturally funnels in. So I've never been the type of person to care about friends, family purchasing products. Those who do will do it. You know, I'm not a fan of forcing it down friends and family's throat. You'll get support.
But let's say even Monty Lane Finance, yeah?
Yeah.
Should all your friends follow you on that page?
Again, I don't really care.
What was your mindset before? Because you said your mindset has changed.
Yeah, so before that, you know, if we go back to 4 or 5 years, I would say, yeah, friends should definitely follow you regardless.
Okay.
But now, like, I've just got to a point where my target market find me. That's all that matters. Your friends and family only make a very small percentage of what you will make as a business, generally speaking.
Even if they do. Yeah.
So it's not worth the hassle, the headache. Also, another thing, and this is a big part of why I'm not a fan of London and the UK in general, is that there's a lot of red eye. So the way I see it is, the less people know how you make money, the less people know what you're doing on the side. The way I see it, that's the best thing, really. It's not worth the headache, it's not worth the hassle.
If I've never really been keen on friends supporting me. I just feel like my friends and family are those who I celebrate with, not who unless I'm doing business with them, not who I, focus.
I think that's even a separate question in itself.
Would you
doing business with friends and family? I've been burnt a few times, which has made me, again, change my mindset.
Are we talking about that now?
Oh, guys, we'll save that for a separate conversation, I think. We'll save it for part 2.
Yeah, cool.
So if you like this, drop a like and subscribe.
Yeah, but I feel my friends, my family, yeah, those are who I celebrate with. We've known each other since the ground up. But that's not they're not my customers, bro. They're not my market either. And they see you in a different light. They're not necessarily gonna give you the respect that society will give you, or your customers will give you. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
And I think it's interesting you say that because, especially through my Monty Lane Finance page, I've got a lot more support from people that I don't even know.
100%.
If we're talking simple, intuitive things, just like commenting under a post, for example.
Yeah. Friends will do that.
Friends don't really do that.
But friends they're gonna watch it though. 100%. They're gonna watch it. They're gonna be like, what? It's difficult because I think when it comes to friends and businesses, it depends on the achievement. So you might have seen, especially when you bought your property. Cause I remember when I bought my property, everyone was just screenshotting and uploading it. And I'm like, bro, there was no contribution for me. But I appreciate it. Don't ever get it twisted.
Yeah.
But it was just like, because it's a massive achievement, the clout is like, well, yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But let's say, even if you upload that you've just deposited your £100, that's not. No one's gonna screenshot that and upload it.
Yeah. There's definitely levels to it. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So people, if you want to start something, don't necessarily just rely or wait for your friends.
Don't
go, because the way society is gonna treat you for putting whatever you're doing out there, there's a customer for every single thing, and you're gonna find your community, and your community are gonna love and embrace you way bigger than you ever thought. you know, you could be embraced or you could be appreciated, you know.
Yeah.
But your family and friends are always gonna love you, so keep them separate.
Yeah. So my last bit of advice, find your target market, find your target audience, and just run with it from there. So question number 7, what did last year teach you?
Last year taught me it's very important to build systems. And when I say systems is, for me, I am big on cash flow and how that cash flow is coming in.
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm going to switch up the question slightly. The biggest lesson I've learned over the past year really is the importance of delegating certain tasks elsewhere.
Oh man, another subject. I'm sorry guys, carry on.
So a big issue that I've dealt with, not even just last year, but just generally speaking, ever since I started my entrepreneurship journey and even just, for example, creating content, is I took on everything myself. And the issue with that is that you then start to deal with burnout. A separate, completely issue, and probably the thing that I want to really focus on, is the importance of outsourcing tasks to experts. So an example I'll give, right? Last year and even the year before that, I wasted a lot of time trying to upskill in something myself. And one thing I've learned is that business likes fast money. So the time that I wasted from trying to upskill in that particular subject, learning how to get a certain thing done, I could have actually outsourced that to someone else, an expert, and got the process done in a matter of weeks.
It's funny because I think depending on what it is, you still need to know the work that could be done. So for example, if you didn't learn, you may not know how good something could have been done if you didn't do it yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent.
It just depends on what it is. Depends on what it is. Because if you've never done it before, you won't. What's your expectation?
But that's the thing. You've got to then waste time learning everything.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, business likes fast money. The easier you're able to implement something, the better.
It depends. Look, what role do you want to play in a business? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you want to be the worker? Do you want to be the owner? Or do you want to be the...
But that's what I mean. When you're as the owner, you know, you shouldn't be doing everything.
Delegate.
Delegate. And this is something that Tim Ferriss talks about in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Yes.
The importance of outsourcing. And, you know, once you start outsourcing, that's when it starts to get game changing. And that's something that I really want to make a priority in this year specifically. Because I think a big issue that a lot of businessmen and business ladies make is setting themselves a goal. So let's say you want to hit $3,000 in revenue a month, right? Once you then hit that $3,000, you then up that goal even higher. So you say I want to hit $5,000. Once you then hit $5,000, you then say you want to hit $7,000. But the issue with that is that going from $3,000 a month to $7,000 a month is a different ball game. It requires more than double the effort
100%.
if we're talking numbers. And you know what is a better or a true metric to actually look at is, instead of saying you want to go from $3,000 a month to $7,000 a month, you should say, well, I made $3,000 a month, now I want to actually make that $3,000 and have it automated instead of actually having to, you know, put in
More effort.
X amount of time to actually increase the output.
Yeah, definitely. I think...
And that's a trap that a lot of business owners fall into, because then you just end up working harder, and the real reason why you set up the business was to
have freedom.
Most of the time reach financial freedom. So ideally, instead of saying, I want to hit $5,000 a month and then I want to go to $7,000 a month, you want to say, I've hit $5,000 a month, now I want to do $5,000 automated without touching.
Or for example, I think again what people don't realize is once you've hit the $5,000 a month, maybe don't try and, you know, aspire for more. Do exactly what you said, but understand that, okay, my profit is now what, 4,000, because the other 1,000 is spent on automating. Do you know what I mean? That 1,000 that you spend on automating gives you all the time in the world.
It's a great return on investment.
Exactly.
And this is exactly, it leads me back to my previous point about, you know, the importance of delegating elsewhere, because if you're not delegating, you're going to be working, and you don't want to be actively working on your business day 100%. In, day out.
Because I even touched on it when we weren't recording. I was telling you about my PA, and yeah, there's an expense, but I can do more things and understand that the quality is sorted and it's gonna be.
They might actually do the job better. Like I said, marketing, for example.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to do the SEO yourself, hire an expert who has 10 years experience already delivering SEO
it might yield
strategies.
better results anyway.
They would, because they're an expert. So
100%. So is Tim Ferriss your book of?
Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week. That is probably one of the most game-changing books I've ever read in my life.
Fantastic read.
He talks a lot about, like I said, the importance of delegating, outsourcing, hiring a personal assistant. So yeah, if those subject areas are something that you're interested in, definitely give the book a good read.
My book is Daniel Priestley, Key Person of Influence.
Not read that.
It's all about understanding your personal brand, understanding that your personal brand is what can get you opportunities without doing the work.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like your name is being spoken in rooms because of your personal brand and because of your knowledge, because of your leverage and in everything that you do, that you're attracting your customers without you doing
Having to even mention anything.
the hard yards and
people
stuff
doing
like
the work for you.
Do you know what I'm saying? And look, we live in a digital world, and something that Gary Vee mentioned is that social media is free. Why are you not building digital businesses? It's free. We're not saying that it needs to be successful, but try and do something that you find interesting, something you love, build a community, have a customer base, and make money. Do you know what I'm saying? A lot of people are making money from TikTok lives, literally just by going on live and saying, look, this glass is da 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 da. And
I feel like it's never been easier to make money online.
Exactly.
With the information we have, with the tools we have at our fingertips, there's never been a generation like this current generation where you're able to make extra money on the side with minimal effort.
But entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Of course not.
It's not, no.
But what we're saying is wealth creation can be for everybody. And whether that's through stocks, whether that's through businesses, or whether that's through acquisitions, or just building a community, you have to try something in this day and age. It's 2025, we can't just be doing something that
one income is too close to zero. So
yeah, especially when people are making people redundant.
I see some red eye over here.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, but that's it, guys, man. We're cool.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's quite different to what my usual regular post is like, but if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, drop a comment, drop a subscribe. And this is just the start. We plan to make these videos on a regular basis, talking about similar concepts. So yeah, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you give my boy Alex Bayka a follow.
And let us know whether you want part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. This could be the first of many. It was a fantastic discussion with my boy. I've known him for nearly 10 years, or if not 10 years.
About 10 years, yeah, 9-10 years.
And we've both come from the LV, from the Giuseppe's.
Even before that, we were rocking Sports Direct, Puma.
Do you know what I'm saying? I think those times it was 2 for 80 or 2 for 70. I can't remember.
Them Puma days. I know a lot of you know the grey Puma tracksuit, the black Puma tracksuit.
Yeah, the Sports Direct by the Tesco. Trust me, I know you guys know. But anyway, if you lot want part 2, part 3, part 4, if you want more of this, talk about our journey, follow us on our journey. We all want to look back in the next 10, 20 years and be like, wow, what we said we were going to do, we achieved. And, this is just a moment for our kids to even watch stuff, God forbid, but when we pass and stuff like that, this is going to remain online, and this is part of the legacy that we're looking to build. So support us.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you back here for part 2.